my story why was basically that I felt sort of alone in college, and I was isolated from my dad, and I was trying to find a way of life. And I, you know, hooked up with this girl, and we eloped, and it kind of ruined my life, and it ruined my trajectory of my life. And so I began searching for what was the right way to live, and is there a way to fulfill our deep desires in life? And I slowly learned over the course of time that there is, and I became more of a Christian, got to know Jesus Christ more, and to learn how to live. And I began figuring out a way to have the right kind of life, and the best sort of life. And so I've been building upon that since. So something like that. And then I believe, like, frankly, I don't know, my dad built into me this notion of that, yeah, well, this is what it is. This is what it is that I can feel the most satisfied in my life and with God when I'm doing things that provide for myself, and it makes me fulfilled in the deepest end, and allows me to feel fulfilled. And so that's really why I'm a conservative, why I'm a libertarian, why I believe in liberty, is because I know that I have to do things in life to feel like I'm a real person. So I know I have to do things in life. So that's what it comes down to. Is I know that the key to me being happy is for me to be responsible for myself and to provide and do things, do cool, awesome things. Mm-hmm. That's why I know that I have to be responsible for myself, and I have to create a desire, a goal, a big desire that I can work towards. And that's what's going to fulfill me.
Yes.
That's my story.
I like it. That makes sense. And it's actually very similar. I mean, not completely, but the root of it is very similar to mine, in that I grew up in a very strict home that I had no choices. They were made for me by my parents, particularly my mother. And she reacted a lot out of, I feel like it was fear. That's the thing I can identify, that as a mother, I think she was always afraid her kids would grow up and make a lot of mistakes. So she really just controlled a lot of where we went, when we went anywhere, things like that. So I know what it was like to be very restricted and have people make decisions for me and basically dole out the resources to me as they felt like I needed it, versus, what would have been if we were all left to our own vices. We probably would have made better use of the resources. Plus, I wouldn't feel like I was restricted and not being able to do anything. And so I was also, and it's a juxtaposition, because not only were we super restricted, but we were kind of forced to be very independent. So that's kind of because my mom worked. So while she was at work, we were left to take care of ourselves, do our own laundry, do our own, take care of ourselves, feed ourselves, do the chores. We didn't have an overlord telling us to do everything. However, our world was completely restricted. So in learning to be independent and also having severe restrictions, it really, I saw that dichotomy, and I lived it to know which way I wanted to live, which was independent. And it was, I knew that I could trust myself to take care of myself, and I had to take care of myself. And I didn't have to rely on other people, because those other people were very restrictive and basically tried to tell me how much of freedom I could have, and like literally of even going to friends' house, which we were never able to do, things like that. That makes sense. So I learned from a very young age to take care of myself, to the power of hard work. And that is one thing my mother taught us very well, was how to work hard and not to, I guess, rely on other people to do things for you, because then it doesn't get done usually very well or very efficiently. But so that's for me. I guess perhaps that's the root of it. But you asked about my why, of why I choose to be conservative, and it's a choice. I choose to be conservative because logically that makes the most sense. And I'm an analytical thinker. I look at things and I kind of break them down of, okay, what makes sense? And I can drive a lot of people crazy because I ask why a lot. And I'm just trying to get to the root of it versus just the superficial surface answers, especially if it doesn't make sense. And the more I peel back those layers, the more it either is still sound principles that work, or it completely falls apart. And usually the ones that completely fall apart, it doesn't take many layers for it to completely fall apart. So
That's great. That's really great. What's your vision for the world? What do you hope more people will be like?
my vision for the world is to have people know how to take care of themselves, and also take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. And for me, I don't know where I fall as far as, like, I can't align with one ideology because I feel like it's not complete, but we do have a responsibility of taking care of each other. And I know that as individuals, as people, we the people can take care of each other. I have been the COO and the executive director of a lot of nonprofit organizations that do a lot of good for a lot of people. And I see firsthand how we can help those who can't help themselves. And it's through either teaching or empowering them to do everything that they possibly can. I am a firm believer that you do for somebody the bare minimum. You make sure that they can do everything. You don't take away their autonomy. You don't take away their individuality. You don't take away their capability. If they're capable of doing something, let them do it. Those things that they are truly not capable, whether it's a disability or it's an illness or even mental health, things like that, then I do feel like there needs to be a structure, a social structure that can catch those people who are falling, but not push people off the edge so they all fall into it. You know what I mean?
What's the detriment or danger of government doing that for people? Does it take away your ability for you to do it, and the call for us to do it for people? Do you feel like we kind of relegate the responsibility to government?
I actually haven't thought of it in that way, but that is a good way of saying it as well. It does take from us the opportunity to help others. But for me, what I've always thought, I've worked in government. I've worked with government grants. I've worked in public health, for a limited amount of time, and in prevention specifically. Mm-hmm. And it was very inefficient, a waste of a lot of money, and it rarely actually helped anybody. The end result was very saturated because it went through so many chains, and so much of the money was spent on all these other things. Not only that, we had to spend the money or we lost the money. So of course you're going to pay extra, more than you actually needed to, because if you don't spend it, then you don't get it next year, any of it. It's not just a limited amount, it's just any of it. And so they're very inefficient. they actually don't help a lot of people. And in the end, the government's never actually ran a successful program, except for the military, but nobody wants to admit that. So
I agree with 100%. What do you want to see people do more of?
thinking for themselves.
That's awesome.
I think that they need a challenge and learn for themselves and not just take people's words for it. And it doesn't matter who it is. It could be your pastor, it could be your bishop, it could be the president of the United States, it could be CNN, it could be Fox News, it could be anybody. You should question that for yourself and not just take their word for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you want to say about Barbara?
She's brave. She is, like, it impresses me the things that she takes on, because she knows full well she's going to be attacked for it on both sides. She takes on these issues that initially I thought, you think some of these things are a non-issue. Like, well, it's not even a big deal. It's not even happening. So why even fight it? Because she knows exactly what is at stake. And if it continues and it weasels in to where it becomes the standard, then fighting the standard is a lot harder than just stopping it before it even starts. So I would say she's very brave.
Yeah. My impression of her was fearless and awesome. As she had the chutzpah and kind of had exactly what you're describing as you want to see more of in the world, right? How would you say, how does she fill the kind of person that you want to see more of in the world?
She stands up for what she believes. And she does it the way that doesn't take away other people's right to think or believe or anything like that. Is she goes through the proper processes. She doesn't hammer it down on other people. She takes it through legislation. She does it the right way, and it's not forced through either emotional coercion or humiliation. The tactic I find to be pretty deplorable by anybody, either any side of the political aisle, is the need to attempt to humiliate, to condescend, to dismiss people because they don't think the way you do. If they don't think the way you do and you think that they're wrong, then show them how they're wrong. I had many lengthy discussions with the public health and East Idaho News and individuals about the COVID death rate, asking specifically, what's I just wanted the ages broken down, the ages of the people who had died from COVID. And East Idaho News like, well, you can find all of our information on our dashboard and on our Facebook page, and literally said, search the internet. And I'm like, well, do you have it collected? I mean, have you been collecting this information? And they told me to go find it myself, which I'm very good at doing. I can go find it myself. But I was absolutely floored when they literally said to me, if we wanted to know this information, we would have calculated it ourselves. Direct quote.
They didn't want to know the information themselves. Of course they don't, right?
No. And that surprised me. I was like, what? They're like, well, we already know that the numbers are not as much as the infection rate isn't legitimate. And then, like, why are you putting that out then?
Who said this?
This is East Idaho Public Health.
And how did you connect with them? How did you talk with them? Get access to them?
Facebook. This was a conversation on Facebook. And I have their quotes. I screen capped everything that they said because I was absolutely floored. I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, But isn't that important to know? Why are we doing all these? Why are we doing what we're doing? Well, we've got to just stop the infection rate so we can keep the hospitals from getting overwhelmed. Okay, that's nice, but who cares if we all get it if we're not dying from it? And how many people are dying from it? They don't the only place that they actually publish it is when they do their updates, and they said, and sadly one person died, and they'd say the sex and the age on Facebook. I had to go through every post between today and back in May to find the ages and the sex. And there was actually 4 of them that they never gave the ages or sex. It's not anywhere else.
I thought you were talking about an individual hospital, but you're talking about the governing body that's responsible for tabulating this information for all of Idaho.
Yes. They do not have it on their Facebook or on their dashboard. They do not have it on their website. They do not have it in one central location. And they said, well, you can go through our Facebook. We publish everything, all the raw data. They told me to go find it myself. So I did. And then I calculated the death rate based on what the current infection rate is, how many people died in what age groups. Nobody else had done that. And he said, oh, news is like, well, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, please show me where I'm wrong. And they don't. Because I said, well, from here, the death rate is 1/3 of what the national death rate is for the flu. And they're like, well, you're wrong.
For the flu?
For the flu. The flu is 1%. Now, this is nationally, because they do not collect the information locally.
We're about 0.02%, 0.03%, right? 0.03.
We're for it depends on the age group. So for those who are 70 and older, the death rate is 0.35%. 0.356.
Not 3%.
No. No. 0.3%.
And what is the death rate? Hold on. What is the death rate for that age group, 70 and above, for the flu?
1%.
So 1% for the flu.
Yes.
And then 0.3?
I'll give you the exact calculation for it.
3%. 0.3 would be.
Let me grab
so for the
number.
flu, it's
okay.
3%, right? The flu is 3%?
No. So the flu for 65 and above is 1.01%. And that's nationally throughout the US. For people age 65 and older.
1.05.
For COVID, in our local, now this is just local, for age 70 and above, it's 0.36%.
So 1.3 compared to 0.3 or 0.03, which is it?
Okay. So for the flu, 65 and above, it is 1.01%. 1%. Yes. Yep.
Okay, 1%. So 3% for the flu and 1% for COVID.
No. For the flu, 65 and above, it's 1.01%.
I see.
Then for COVID, locally, for ages 70 and above, it's 0.36%.
Gotcha. Yeah, so 1/3. Yep, 1/3. Yeah, third less. It's
so
1/3
for
of it.
ages, right. And okay, so then for the flu, ages 50 to 64, 0.11%.
Wow.
For COVID locally, for 50 to 69, 0.07%. And it gets less from there. Below that, it's 0.01% from 18 to 59, and below that, 0% for COVID.
Yeah, that's astonishing. We don't do the same measures for the flu.
Right. And I asked them, I said, would it make sense to protect the 70 and above? Because obviously that's the higher rate.
Exactly.
And nationally, it's significantly higher. So we're doing very well here. And they said that they don't calculate that information because it doesn't matter to them, because all they're worried about is the hospital, overwhelming the hospitals, which none of the local hospitals are at capacity. They're
What
closed.
percentage
Few of
of
them are
capacity
closed.
would you say they're at? And how many of them are COVID patients, would you say?
Well, I know in Rexburg there's only one COVID patient in Madison. In Idaho Falls, I believe there were 6.
Okay.
But that
I think
information they do have on East Idaho News.
yeah,
I didn't delve into that because I just asked them what's the death rate, and they're like, we don't calculate it. You can go find it yourself.
I see. Who does calculate it? The news organizations? Oh, we know what. Why do you think they don't calculate themselves, but let the news organizations do it?
The news hasn't calculated the death rate. I have not seen it on the news.
So perhaps they're leaving the liability of calculating it up to
Yes.
third parties. So if they want to exaggerate it or exaggerate it, then that's up to them.
Right. But they're also not going to publish that it's so low. Like it's ridiculously low.
Well, I'd love for you to put those things in the notes, and we'll put that next to your testimony here in your video. That's astonishing.
Yeah, I was rather surprised by it. And I asked anybody, because everybody's like, oh, you're so wrong. I'm like, prove me wrong, please. Do the math. Prove me wrong. Because I am not a statistician. I'm not. But I can do math. I can calculate a percentage of something. Nobody.
That's phenomenal.
Nobody would.
Phenomenal. Good. Well, you now have the ability to share this exact story with a lot of people. So go forth and do so. All right?
I have tried, and actually, so I've been friends with the member of the Board of Health, Barbara Nelson, for 20 plus years. I've known her, yeah. We were acquaintances, friends. And when I was asking her questions, she didn't give me any answers. And then she commented on somebody else. And I said, I'm like, oh, I'm really disappointed. You're kind of rude there. And she literally blocked me. I was like, what? So then when I was asking East Idaho Public Health these questions, because I had another friend who was kind of high up in the Eastern Idaho Public Health, and we were having good conversations. And when I published what I found on all this information on my Facebook page, she completely unfriended me. I was like, what is going on?
Wow. Well, you have the power. What I'm going to plant the seed of power in you. You have the power to build a viral community where you talk one-on-one, just like this, with people in your network and share your story, just a bit of what you share with me today, and then ask them to share their story. And together, your stories can go out, and you can build relationships with one by one, and each person you connect with can then build more relationships, and it can have a compounding effect. So we just like Paul Revere rode through the towns. Do you ever think about, he knew exactly who to talk to, that the British were coming, that this was not, that this was actually a real problem. It was not the way they were hearing it from their other newspapers in town, but there's a real problem that the British were coming with their own military. He knew exactly who to talk to spread the word. And so now you too can be like Paul Revere and find who you should talk to that can spread the information to the right people and be Paul Revere's. That's our mission. We have to.
I like that.
We can't depend upon Facebook to broadcast a message. We have to do it one by one and build a network that can grow and be a viral community where we can be, where we can pledge our lives and our fortunes to keep ourselves free. And we can be the media, and we can be Free people.
Well,
We have
I
to
would
be.
really like to do this interview again, actually, and on camera, because I think that, are you just wanting the audio? Because I think it might be more
On
know.
video. But you know,
Yeah.
what's cool is that you have the ability to now do the exact same thing with someone you nominate. Go nominate people and share your testimony with them.
For
That's
sure.
the power. That's the
Yeah.
power. We got this one now.
Like it.
You can share this
Okay.
one with people and on your platforms, and then share
Yeah.
with people individually, private message them, and then talk to them on the phone, and then do an interview like this.
It.
All right.
That's fantastic.
We got two more, Jennifer and someone else.
Yes.
All right. You can stay on if you want. You can stay on if you want, but I got to go over to them. You're awesome.
Nope.
So make those notes.
Will do. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Bye-bye.
Hold on.
Awesome.
Goodbye.
Good job.